One. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Business of Business podcast. I'm Roy. This is a show that we try to present a diverse range of guests on here to give us a lot of great information, but also it may spark some ideas, some things that we haven't really thought about. But then also if we have troubles that we have been thinking about, it also gives us a professional or expert in that arena to go to in order to help us solve some of those issues. So today we are fortunate enough to have Bobby Machado on. He is the CEO and Lead Strategist at Signa Marketing. He is also the CEO at Sector 7 Apps and a partner at Quick Job Products with his brother Cesar Machado. As a kid, Bobby always had an interest in business, such as providing landscaping services, horse training, reselling. You're going to have to explain this one. Reselling Tang back to his parents during the fifth grade. And his experience in the digital world began when he taught himself how to code websites in high school, which turned into a way for him to make some money on the side while racing motocross, which still remains one of his passions. After Bobby stopped racing at 22, he decided to focus his full-time efforts on web development, and freelance web development introduced him to the digital marketing world. He has also managed a little over $300,000 a month in Google ad spend for several auto dealerships in the United States. So, Bobby, thanks so much for taking time out of your day to be with us and help us with marketing. It's such a moving target. If you even came close to having a handle on it today, tomorrow you'll be behind again. So we appreciate you coming on. But before we get way off into this, tell me about the Tang story. So how did that work where you're selling the Tang back to your parents?
Oh, of course. No, and thank you so much again, Roy, for having me on. I'm excited to be here. And yeah, so the Tang story, I mean, so that's fifth grade. We were in some apartment complex, and this apartment complex was actually still growing. So next door, they were actually building a second phase of this whole complex. And so I actually had all my toys, my Hot Wheels and et cetera. And actually I ended up building like a storefront in front of my parents' apartment. And then also I loved Tang. Like, I mean, we'd always drink Tang.
Right.
And it's funny when you bring up Tang, people are like, oh yeah, Tang.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, so there actually, I still have a really cool photo of me even online of actually me reselling Tang to my dad, and my dad and my sister's there, and my actually younger brother Cesar's right there with me too. And yeah, so it's always been in my DNA, I would say, of wanting to provide a service.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that supply was actually taken from my parents, so I still owe them for that.
Oh, that's awesome. So, we talked a little bit about how you got here, and so you've kind of stepped up through the web development, which kind of led into the digital marketing and advertising, and I think that's pretty much a natural progression, is because, to be honest with you, and nowadays especially, it's easy to build a pretty decent website, but if you don't get any eyes on that website, it really hasn't done you much good.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think I got into web development in high school based off other ambitions and ideas and stuff like that. But how you mentioned right now, it's like I learned very quickly that once I built a site and was able to put it out for a client, the client was always saying like, okay, now what?
Right, right. Yeah, and that's the $1 million question even today as we come through. Things like I said, they change so much from the early 2000s, late 90s when web pages became more prevalent, and so I think also too we've just come through this 2020, which has been a very odd year. So, what are some things that small businesses, agencies like yourself, what are some takeaways that we've gotten from 2020, kind of leading into 2021?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. One of the major things that we saw was we had a lot of clients that are very dependent on lead generation. So really tackling the bottom of the funnel, getting in front of people that are already actively searching for their services or product. What we saw was a lot of different clients where that demand, the demand for their service or product fluctuated drastically, and a lot of them, that demand decreased.
Right.
At that point, they found themselves in a situation where they say, how do we even stay relevant? Because how do I get people to be interested again?
Right.
And that's where, it was a situation where it was exposing the vulnerability of not investing on brand awareness and top funnel and making sure that you are even exposed in that sense to your target audience. Because again, I mean, people, they can't buy from you if they don't know you exist.
Right.
And so I think relevancy was a huge thing that a lot of businesses, I mean, you saw large businesses do this because they have, capital to do that. But the thing is that in this day and age, there's a lot of efficient ways to build brand awareness through social media networks and stuff like that on a budget. And so I think that really kind of brought a lot of awareness to saying, oh, you know what, we should make sure that we're always investing on top funnel activities, whether it's content generation or brand awareness, video production, et cetera, because of the fact that we know we don't want to just solely rely on lead generation, because even though lead generation is great, I love it, but we have to make sure that we're covering all our bases so that we're agile and ready for, any situation that actually comes up in the economic world,
Yeah, and I think that's an important distinction that, lead generation is awesome, but, we want to continue to fill that pipeline. And even though things are awesome for us today and we've got more leads than we can handle, there's always that possibility. And usually I've seen it with other businesses, it's I call it the boom and bust cycle. It's like we've got all this business, we're not doing any marketing or putting ourselves out there, really doing anything. And then, 6 months from now, we're at the bottom of that. At the bottom of the bus, we've got no customers, no phone calls, and we got to ramp that. All of a sudden, we have to ramp up that brand awareness and marketing to start, that funnel process again. And it takes time. I mean, it's not usually in most businesses, it's not something that you can decide, well, hey, things are slow on Friday. I'm going to wake up Monday and, fling a new ad out or start this campaign, and things just start rolling in on Tuesday. And I think that's important to remember. Something I talk about, the kind of relating to the agregarian model, is that we, in the digital world, and as our attention spans grow shorter, we tend to leave out, we want to sow the seed and then we want to reap the harvest all pretty much in the same phone call or the same email. We forget about that middle part about cultivating. And to me, it's so important in the marketing process and in the sales process.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, the beauty of social media and these networks in the world that we're in now is that, I mean, small businesses can afford to do something. Right. I mean, they have a direct pipeline of communication with their target audience that didn't exist before. And so, I mean, even though a lot of people are aware of social media now, it's very, it's maturing quite a bit. I think that there's still a lot of small businesses that aren't going all in on it and really taking advantage of the free exposure that's there, the free communication that you can attain with your target audience. And then even with paid social, if you're, investing in Facebook advertising or Instagram advertising and YouTube advertising, those three channels are still incredibly cheap if compared to traditional mediums, And so from my, perspective, really, there's no reason why not to at least execute some type of plans around these networks, right, to make sure that you're feeding the top funnel so that you actually have an audience to remarket or nurture over time,
right.
Because if you don't, then you only have bottom funnel, and when that bottom funnel dries up, right, then you're left like, oh shoot, I need to do something.
Right. Yeah, because I think we need to also take in mind that I may be a great customer for you today. I may be a great customer for you in the future. Maybe I don't have the money today, or maybe I don't have the need to today. But as businesses, we need to stay in front of those people in some way, because at some point they will become our customer, and I guess, or they could be. And I liken it to our short memories, is that you could have a guy that you've used before and really love and did a good job, but if you haven't heard or talked to him in 2-3 years, but there's another guy that just talked to you about a month ago, it's like, well, that's the guy I remember, the last one I talked to. And so just kind of I guess
Yep.
it emphasizes that need that we always need to, try to be staying out there and talk a little bit. Again, I'm a novice, so I'm going to let you explain this. But the nice thing about social media, Facebook, YouTube, a lot of these, and probably more channels, but the ability to target is gotten incredible.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, I know that with Facebook, there's some changes with iOS 14 and the iPhone, that whole thing. And we'll see what happens with that, because the thing is that there are a ton of iPhone users
Right.
that maybe the targeting we would see a decrease of how well the machine itself can target. But I anticipate it'll get worked out. The cool thing is that it's not affecting Android yet, and there's a ton of Android users out there.
Yeah.
And I mean, Facebook's machine in terms of understanding how to find your target audience and get in front of them it is crazy. It is ridiculously good. And I mean, even when they first started, you would get really, really specific on your targeting settings. But I mean, it's got to the point where if you have a customer list, an existing customer list, and you upload it to create a lookalike audience, a lot of times you could even just start with that as a layer of targeting and even keep all your other settings open, other than like geographic location, stuff like that,
Right.
maybe age group, stuff like that. But by building lookalike audiences, those are really powerful because of the Facebook machine,
Right.
in the sense of being so well at targeting people. We'll see what happens with the iOS side of things. Regardless, we're still figuring out ways around that. It's not going to necessarily stop things.
Right.
And again, one thing I'm very, very, I'll always preach is don't depend on one platform. So
Yeah.
if Facebook went away tomorrow, I'd say, okay, well, you know what? I still have YouTube, because YouTube is insanely good at targeting, and it's extremely cheap
Right.
to get in front of a local audience or a national audience. So, it's always making sure that you don't have all your eggs in one basket.
Right.
Just make sure you're diversified. It's the same as, to be honest, investing in marketing is almost like investing in a stock portfolio. You're going to have some stocks that perform better than others.
Right.
But you're looking at what's my return out of the entire portfolio.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how we approach marketing too.
Yeah, and you make a good point about the platforms that we're on, because, and this is probably ancient thinking. I mean, I think it's still good, but this is back in the old days. There'd be some people that may just have all their business, not just talking about advertising or marketing, but they would actually have all their content on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. They didn't have much of a web presence, and so I think it you can affirm this, or we can talk about it, but I think what the thinking used to be was that you really need to make sure that you develop your own platform where you have your information, your website, and drive your traffic back to that, because as we know, if these other platforms can change their rules and really affect you going forward, whereas if you kind of built your own platform and you're driving traffic back to your information or what you want, you're a little bit more secure in that you have control over that. So I guess it really hasn't been a problem, or have you seen it to be a problem? But that still holds true, correct?
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of having a home base. You are seeing a lot of e-commerce sites and e-commerce brands really focusing on direct-to-consumer sales and trying to not depend on retail. You're seeing a lot of Amazon shops. I mean, Amazon is ridiculously competitive now to be on that marketplace, and so you are absolutely seeing a lot of brands say, "Hey, you know what? We're gonna put all our eggs in this basket of building our home base."
Right.
There are competitors like Walmart. They opened up their marketplace, and that's still a big opportunity to get in, because it's not as competitive as Amazon.
Right.
But yeah, if there was one, when we talk e-commerce, one big shift in 2020 was going back to direct to consumer, which it was already headed there.
Right.
But I feel like 2020 kind of put a little pressure on a lot of changes like that.
Well, and this is a little bit marketing, but a little bit sales as well. We want to build a relationship with people in some respect that used to you could get out in the community, go to offices and have meetings. And now that we are, we're relying a lot more on digital. to kind of get that personality out and to start,
Hmm.
maybe not completely build a relationship, but definitely plant the seeds to start that. So I guess that kind of amps up the importance of all of us putting in a good effort, but also, like you said, a lot of content spread across a lot of different platforms.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, when it comes, and again, when it comes to like content marketing and social media, I mean, these are platforms so you can build a relationship with your audience, with your target consumer, build that trust, build that loyalty, the familiarity. I drill into familiarity a lot
Yeah.
because, for someone to buy from you, they have to be okay with having some type of communication with you.
Right.
And so, and you're when you're actually investing into content marketing, social media, et cetera, building that relationship online, your sales team's actually going to love it
Yeah.
because when they get those people on the phone, they're going to say, "Whoa, this person was just great to close because they're already pre-educated.
Yeah.
Maybe I closed some gaps on the sales call in terms of things they had questions on, but
Right.
in terms of doing a hard sale, it smooths out that process too."
Yeah. Yeah, and I want to come back to that on the content marketing, but what I'd like to make a point is in smaller companies, I've been in kind of that position of doing the marketing and doing the sales, and so I can control what I do marketing because I see the results on the sales side. So I think another point here is that marketing and sales, even though sometimes in bigger companies are different departments, there needs to be a lot of communication and a lot of interplanning. And I
Yep.
do always encourage our salespeople to use some kind of customer relation management platform because
Hmm.
marketing needs evidence of what campaigns are doing. And I think, it helps them zero their message in, not only the message, but maybe on the audience, because if we're attracting the wrong people that aren't really our customers, then, we could have 1,000 inquiries, but if those aren't our people who we can sell to, not doing us any good. So that's
Hmm.
just a good message to have that communication, the interplaying. Sales keep up with the CRM well, where you can transfer that data back to the marketing department.
Oh, yeah, that's an excellent point. I think I always say, marketing and sales, they're supposed to be best friends. They're supposed to have each other's back.
Right, right.
And the beauty is a lot of these marketing automation platforms that are, I mean, really, really good, like SharpSpring and HubSpot and stuff like that. They're great because to what you mentioned right now, it allows even more fluid, complete communication between those two teams
Right, right.
so that they can better work together.
Yeah. So, I'm a huge fan of content marketing, but I'm going to just get you to just give a general explanation and overview for the listeners in case there's somebody that's really not familiar. A lot of buzzwords and terms that go around. So we hear it all the time. We may not know exactly what it is. So if you could just give us a little overview of that.
Absolutely. When it comes to content marketing is about putting out education and becoming an authoritative figure in your industry or in your space. It always stems from content, whether it's long form video or blog posts or even podcasts like this on. It's always about long form content and really putting out education so that as a company or as a brand, people do seek you out as a resource,
Right.
someone that they say, okay, I can trust this company, or I've learned XYZ from them. Now, how to channel that content, you can do it in several different ways because you can do an audio form like this with the podcast. You can do video form on YouTube. You can do contextual on blog posts. You can take all these pieces of long form content and create highlights or segments and use them as micro pieces of content on social media. And so it always stems from content and then having a plan of, okay, where's our target audience hanging out online so we can make sure that we distribute this content in the right areas in a way that's easily consumable for their style of how they consume content.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that is awesome. And I think I'm huge on that education factor because I want to be transparent. I don't want to be bait and switch or tricky. I don't want to be like,
Yeah.
I've got an awesome study for you to look at, but I need you to click on 27 links and sign up for all this stuff. And then you get a thing like, well, really, if you'll sign up for our seminar paid, then we'll give you this information. If you promise somebody something, just give it to them. I mean, it goes such a long way in building that relationship and becoming that authority. People need to be able to trust you. And it's made it a little more difficult for some of us online because there's so many people out there that are distrustful that you just can't, they kind of ruin it for the rest of us. So all I would say is just, be transparent and do what's right for your customer or for your prospect.
Oh yeah, 100%. And if you're in a position to be able to be a practitioner where you can demonstrate basically the same thing that you're trying to have your clients do or stuff like that, if you're doing it yourself, I think that's even the best form of showing, hey, there is no BS here, or I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm a practitioner of the things I preach, type of deal.
Right.
And so, yeah, so a lot of clients and businesses that are in a position where they can be a practitioner, I always encourage that as well, for sure.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point about creating long form content. I'll let you explain it, but I know Google typically won't index anything under about 500 words anymore. And so we need to have things that are longer than that. But the beauty about the longer form, when we start getting 12, 18, 2,000, 2,500 words is not only are we able to get a lot more information out there to educate people, a lot more research and things like that, but talk about breaking that up and being able to use it across our different social media platforms we don't have to recreate the wheel every time we want to make a post.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start with video, and the reason why is because video, if we had to categorize the priority of different types of formats of content, right, it's definitely going to start with video, audio after that, and then contextual after that. But starting with video is awesome for producing, of course, long-form content. Long-form content is great because it gives an opportunity for conversations to go into naturally subtopics and stuff like that sometimes are not necessarily scripted. They go into it, and there's always a really good nugget of information there.
Right.
So by doing long-form content, say you have a 30-minute show and there's 4 great points, 4 great takeaways that people should be consuming and should put action towards. That's where we can segment those types of pieces of content to micro content and share that on Instagram TV, on Facebook, of course on Twitter, etc. But now the cool thing about doing that is that you have these micro pieces of content that can actually hook someone, and then you'll have a link that says watch the full episode here. And so now you're bringing people into watching the full episode, and that's just one tactic on how to continue to build your audience. But again, the only reason why is because you actually broke out a really good piece of content that's easily consumable by them,
right,
on the network where they hang out.
Right.
So you're really just catering to the audience at that point.
Yeah, and our tools to do this, because I have started that. My podcast host has like a thing that you could do an audiogram, but I've been doing more YouTubes and more videos lately. So I think it was $9 a month. I found a little clipper tool that you can go into an hour-long video, clip out your 1 or 2 minutes, or go to your point, and then be able to post that. And it's been a very awesome thing for me, for sure.
Oh yeah, tremendous. And I love audiograms. I mean, a lot of people think like initially, oh, it's just audio, I can't post this on Instagram and stuff like that. But you can make some really cool audiograms and that are catchy and eye engaging and etc. And it's again just a way for people to discover the show.
Yeah.
To then say, hey, you know what? I'm just going to subscribe now, because then when I go drive home later after work, I can listen to the show.
Yeah, one of my old sayings, the audience probably gets sick every time I say this, but the old saying was, text is pretty good. People can read it. If you have a picture with that text, then it's like leaving breadcrumbs back to, back in the old days, to your blog. But they said a video is like leaving chocolate-covered breadcrumbs back to your content. I mean, it's just, it's unbelievable the difference stepping up from just something text. And I guess like even on websites that is true, but I think when we talk about social media, I think it is more exponentially true. I think people scroll by a lot of text, and somebody brought up a good point too. Like if you have text, you may take up. Ooh, can't get in front of that. If you may take up, very little space as people are scrolling up and down their feeds. When you have a picture, all of a sudden your real estate is widened very much, and it just makes you have a bigger presence, catches people's eyes.
Oh yes, yeah, absolutely. Anywhere where you can just understand the platform and what you're able to post on there, you're able
Right.
to strategize to say, okay, cool. If I actually had my photo that's actually 1920 high and 1080 wide, that way it actually takes up the whole mobile phone type of deal
Right.
on a platform like Instagram or Facebook. But yeah, no, that's a great tactic there. And then one tactic that I'm actually really fond of, because it actually has so many benefits that it's a domino effect, is say you produce long form video. At that point, you would absolutely, the next step would say, you publish it on YouTube. It's SEO for YouTube, but then create a contextual blog post of that video. Basically, have that on your website. Then in the blog post, embed the video itself on there. If you did have a situation where you're taking the audio of that long form video and putting it up as a podcast, you can even put the MP3 player even on that same blog post if you'd like. The reason why this is actually really good is because someone's going to land on your blog post. They're going to see that there's a video version of it. So then they're just going to start watching the video.
Okay.
And at that point, you're clocking average time per session on your page. So that historical behavior in terms of a very positive metric like that actually aids your SEO efforts over time, because Google sees, wow, people land on this blog post and then they stay on here for a good 30 minutes. So it's actually pretty good it's very valuable to them.
Okay, that's interesting. And I have not, but I'm definitely going to take a look at that, because usually on what I've been doing is just putting the audio player at the top and then doing a transcript of the podcast, kind of for the long form. But I'm going to look at embedding the video in there too. That's a good point.
Yeah, and actually you're already one major step ahead anyways by just doing what you just mentioned right now as far as having the audio player on there.
Yeah.
That's actually great right there, because people are clicking on that audio player and then they're sitting on their page just listening to the content.
Yeah. And there's so many tools out there. I mean, we could make 3 or 4 episodes just in all of our tools, but I think I think it's easy. People will think, oh, I can't do that, or how do I do that? But Zoom, we'll take that for example, is, you can just make a recording of yourself. And the nice thing about it is not only are you doing the video, it captures the audio as well. There's an audio file, but then you can share your desktop. So if I wanted to make a video for my consumers or prospects, I could be talking, switch over to look at this illustration or the product or whatever you want to. It's so versatile and it's so easy and it's very cheap.
Oh, 100%. The beauty of Zoom. I
Yes.
mean, for any of even just people we talk to and stuff like that, I really do preach that there really is no excuse now to not have a podcast.
Right.
Because essentially you have Zoom, which does everything you just described right now. In addition, you also have free podcast hosting platforms like Anchor.fm, where they make it a breeze to be able to publish your podcast, your show. And so really the friction and the obstacles to entry are literally close to none now.
Right.
Maybe I believe it's, I don't know how much Zoom is. I think it's $14.99 a month or something like that. But I mean, it's lunch money basically.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
For
as versatile as it is, because not only can you reach out and have, interaction with prospects, but also just that the ability to record. You can record training messages to I mean, you could go on and on about the uses for that. It's just, it's incredible. And I think that's where we kind of have to take that step out there and find these things that are available that can do what we need to do for, very cost effective. Just like you said, they don't have to be hour-long audios or videos. If we just have a quick message, maybe it's only 30 seconds or a couple minutes, but being able to get it out there in some audio or video form actually increases the chances that you get that message over to your prospect.
Exactly, 100%. And all this content marketing, this entire subject here actually ties to the very beginning of what we learned in 2020.
Yeah.
Because what happens, again, a lot of businesses weren't doing this. I mean, maybe they were doing some content marketing, but they weren't seeing the seriousness of it, of
Right.
how much they should be investing in it.
Right.
Because all this content is going to live forever online, which is great. And this is top funnel stuff, so people can discover you through all this content.
Right.
So that's why it's tremendously important.
Yeah. So one thing, we kind of talk about some is knowing where your customer lives online or your prospect lives online, age groups, positions, income, all those things change and vary, from one platform to the other. But a question I've kind of been thinking about the last few days is I'm on all these platforms because I post there. And so, it gives me a chance when I'm posting or looking through, I may, scroll through all of these. But just for a consumer, do you have any idea how many platforms, social media platforms, that they may visit on a regular basis? I mean, if they're a Facebook user, do they just stay tied to Facebook or Pinterest, or are they moving, across these platforms?
Yeah, so in terms of stats, I don't know all the stats. One stat I know off the top of my head is that Instagram as a platform on an average basis is checked about 150 times a day.
Wow.
It is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous. And so, and it makes sense as far as why Instagram has really leveled up their e-commerce capabilities, why there's a shopping section and stuff like that, because it is incredible in terms of a source. I mean, and it's very versatile, whether you have the youngest age group there or the more on the older age group there, you have everyone on there. Another one, which is it is definitely controversial probably still, but it's TikTok. TikTok initially is really thought to be of tweens and doing the dances and all that stuff. And that's definitely where it got up. But you would be fascinated to know that the second and third most search categories are fitness and do it yourself home improvement.
Wow.
And yeah, and so now what's happening is you have a lot of people of all sorts of backgrounds going onto TikTok to consume content because they're learning. They're learning about certain subjects, and that machine of TikTok is ridiculously good at feeding what you are interested in. If you open up a new account and you spend some time on the platform for a day, you'll start to see your feed being suggested with videos that are very, very close to what you're interested in. It's a pretty good machine. But that's another platform which has a ton of opportunities still for a lot of businesses to get in there and do top funnel content in a way that's incredibly engaging.
Yeah. Actually, you read my mind. I just had written that down on a piece of paper because it's, it's an emerging topic. I think old people like myself, it's like, it's like you said, it's the dancing tweens over there that I stay away from. But, I've heard of a couple of one of them was like a metal worker or glass blower, more of an artistic type guy. But, he would post the 1-minute videos of how he was developing a product or making something and had very good luck. So I do think that it's growing beyond just, the dancing teen. And also I think somebody had told me once that probably good just to go over there and reserve your names or your, domain. So if you don't ever use it, at least you have it in case things come around to where you feel like you need to.
Oh, absolutely. You would this is actually pretty interesting here is there's a competing platform called Byte. So it's BYTE, and it's by the co-founder of Vine. Vine, with that platform that died some time ago. But the interesting thing is actually it's a direct competitor of TikTok. And so that's just another one just to go in there and do what you mentioned right now is at least reserve your user handle, because it is actually picking up some momentum. Another one is Clubhouse. Clubhouse is blowing up like crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I just heard about that yesterday for the first time, and then I saw a post from a previous guest where she said, "Hey, I'm on Clubhouse, and here's where I'm at." Can
Yeah.
can you share a little bit about what Clubhouse is?
For sure. So Clubhouse is essentially a platform where it's you have to be nominated, so invite only. What this has allowed is for I'll back up. Basically, there's rooms. A moderator can create a room and invite people into that room and basically have a group discussion right there through pure audio live. And it was interesting because even recently there was like a Shark Tank room with people pitching
Okay.
business owners. Even Grant Cardone was in there and stuff like that too. And
Right,
so
right.
it's amazing to have direct access to these individuals. But because it's invite only, where you have to be nominated, the beauty of it is that the quality of the interactions are extremely high. So what people are doing on Clubhouse is building relationships. It's not somewhere where you're going in there to sell. It's there to build relationships. And again, this actually ties into top funnel activity,
Right.
because that's where they say, hey, you know what? That's a great idea. Find me on Instagram and send me a direct message.
Oh.
They take the conversation to a secondary platform like Instagram or Twitter. And the same thing is with TikTok, where TikTok is not where you sell necessarily yet, but it's where you're able to drive that awareness to your Instagram, and then your Instagram to your website, and et cetera, et cetera.
So if I was in Clubhouse, I'm trying to get a better understanding for myself. So I would have a room, and then maybe I would send out an email to some prospects or current clients and say, at 2 o'clock today, I'm going to be discussing this topic, and then basically everybody would kind of gather there. Is that how it goes?
It goes that way, but the only way they're going to be able to see it is if they're already on Clubhouse.
Okay.
And so when you sign up for Clubhouse, you actually have one invite. You can nominate one person.
Wow.
But once you use it, you use it. So,
And that's a pretty good. It sounds limiting from the consumer use side, but it's actually a pretty good method, because if you think back in the old days when Facebook first came around, you had to have a college email extension in order to be able to join. So it kind of made it a little mysterious. It was that scarcity, like, well, people wanted to be on there because they couldn't be on there, and they wanted to know what else was going on. So it's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds with Clubhouse, if they'll keep those tight restrictions, or eventually, once they build a hardcore nucleus of users, if they'll, open that up a little bit more. Yeah.
oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, I myself am actually still testing it out and using it a lot. It is very new for me, even still. And so I've been in there hanging out, attending rooms and participating and stuff like that. I wasn't able to get Bobby as the handle. I was able to get Bobby Machado, but not Bobby.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe I could get Bobby. No, someone already had that.
But there used to be, and this has been a few years ago, there was an audio platform. It was more of a 30-second, 1 minute. You just posted your audio on there, but it seemed like it changed names. But I was just wondering if you're familiar with that, and if that's the one that just went out of business, like a few months ago, if that's the one that dissolved.
Are you referring to kind of like what Yinker FM used to be, where you could tweet, you could basically put out an audio file and someone could listen to it and reply back in audio?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Or you just it was more like, I just kind of compare it to Instagram, but instead of putting a picture, you put up an audio file and people could listen to it and then comment on it, or, repost it or whatever. But it was gaining some speed, and then all of a sudden, part of that was me. It just dropped off of my radar, but I didn't know if it was still around.
Yeah, so I think you might be referring to Anchor FM for sure then, because Anchor actually used to be that, and they ditched that whole model completely and then went into the podcasting realm.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's because I actually was participating in that, kind of testing, playing around with it and stuff. And then I remember one day they just it started to evolve and it was all gone, and then it was all podcasts. At that point. But Twitter does have that functionality where you can actually tweet out basically like a voice memo, an audio file. So Twitter actually has that functionality.
I did not know that. Are you limited to, I guess, a very, very small
For
bite?
details. Yeah, you know what? I don't know off the top of my head, but
Okay.
I'm sure you can't do like a 30-minute show or anything on there. It's
Right,
probably
right.
like, yeah, it's probably definitely limited.
Okay.
But it's something to have fun with for sure.
Yeah, I have to check that out because I think, especially if you're driving, people want to be able to listen stuff and not have to read so much. So that's an
Yeah.
awesome thing to check out. Well, Bobby,
Hmm.
we appreciate you taking time out of your day to be with us. I mean, we've talked about some awesome stuff, given the audience and myself even a lot of great ideas. So appreciate that very much. Before I let you go, so what is a tool that you use in your life? And it could be a tool, it could be a habit, a ritual, personal, professional, but what's something that just adds a lot of value to your life that you just don't feel like you could give up?
I think these days it's has evolved to a tool called Boomerang,
Okay.
and it's for Gmail. Yeah, but the reason why, and I'm sure people are probably like, "Oh, really? It has to do with email? This is the most important thing." But the reason why is because when you having so many conversations, so many things that you want to make sure do occur, you want to make sure that those things don't fall through the crack. And
Okay.
people get busy. Maybe you sent out an email and you haven't received a response in 3 days or stuff like that. And so Boomerang really helps me a ton to make sure that if on my follow-up game, basically, if someone didn't reply and I didn't get what I needed in time or anything like that, I can be proactive about it
Yeah.
and have the system bring these emails back into my inbox. And I know Gmail has the nudge feature and stuff like that, but Boomerang, at least for me, has really helped set those types of rules up. And so depending on the subject matter or who the email went out to, I can set the day and time I want that email to come back if I haven't received a reply from them.
Okay.
That one has made my life tremendously more efficient and easier for sure.
It's interesting you bring it up because I noticed on my, I use Outlook, and I noticed on my toolbar at the top, I've got that extension on there. I had signed up for it years ago, and I really haven't looked through it much, but now I'm going to take another look at that and see how I can put that to work for me.
Yeah, no, it's definitely benefited my day to day
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. All right. Well, tell everybody who is your client, how they can, or what you can do for them, and then, of course, how they can reach out and get a hold of you.
Yeah, absolutely. So Signa Marketing is really an agency that focuses on small to medium-sized businesses, and it really comes down to three core pillars. It comes down to paid media advertising, search engine optimization, and website design and development. And specifically, when it comes to websites, it's actually of building a machine that's going to work really well for paid media and SEO. And so, basically, we do everything in the house. These three pillars really are very integrated for us,
Okay.
and it allows us to be essentially produce better results for clients at the end because of the fact that these components don't have to, work siloed. They work together in that sense.
Right.
But yeah, so anyone that's interested on following any of our content, we put out a ton of content to help small business owners. You can find us on social media at our handle, which is Signa Marketing. So Signa Marketing everywhere is actually the handle. And also we produce a show where I host called Blueprint, where I answer any and all digital marketing questions in relation to how to market a business online. So it's a fun show that I get to do where we receive questions from anywhere and everywhere,
Okay.
and I answer them candidly on the show. So it's also just another way to provide value to anyone that's seeking answers to very specific questions that they have.
Okay, great. And I'll include all those links in the show notes where people can reach out and find you out there. Again, Bobby, thank you. You've been very helpful, much appreciated. And that's going to do it for this episode of the Business of Business podcast. You can find us, of course, at www.thebusinessofbusinesspodcast.com. Also, have finally secured the www.tbobp, the initials, so not so long. So we're kind of trying to integrate that into some of our marketing as well. But you can also reach out, find us on all the major social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. The video will also go up on YouTube when the episode goes live. So until next time, take care of yourself and take care of each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.